Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Designs by Dee. My name is Deepa Robbins and today I decided to create a video which kind of compares different glitter or glimmer pastes. It's been quite a while since I've done a video, so this is a bit long, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. So first of all, I wanted to start off by showing you how I store most of my glitter pastes. I specifically buy a lot of Bo Bunny glitter paste just because they have a good price point. They're pretty available. You can buy them on Amazon in Canada and the US. And there's a large selection. So here I'm showing you, there's just tons of different colors. I only have, what is this, like maybe 19 or 20? But there's a fair amount of different colors of each color. So today, I'm going to be using, one of the pastes I'm going to be using is Bo Bunny, and I think I'm going to go ahead and use that ruby red that I have there in my hand. Okay, so I'll just work on putting this away, and the next paste that I'm going to be using is Nuvo's Glimmer Paste. Now, Nuvo is a little bit more expensive than the Bo Bunny, and I don't find it's as readily available on Amazon, but it is available on all different craft sites. And that color I had there was the Tanzanite Lavender. And next, I'll also be making my own glitter paste using this Stampendous Dreamweaver and Pearlescent Embossing Paste, along with some Wow Copper Glitter. So that's another option. If you're not able to actually buy these glitter pastes, you can make your own. So here I'm just showing you that these are the three different types of glitter paste that I'm going to be using. And I won't be using them all on the same type of cardstock, but it's still a good comparison. So I'm going to move along here, and I'm using this Tim Holtz stencil. I forget what this one is called. Either way, all the items that I'm going to be using will be listed on my blog. And I'm going to line this. This is one of the bigger stencils, not the small ones. So I'm actually going to line that up there and tape it on with some normal painter's tape. And I'll start putting that glitter paste on there. So this one is the Bo Bunny Ruby Red. Now I do find that this stencil is a bit intricate. There are certain areas that are a bit narrower and harder to get the paste into. And the glitter in the Bo Bunny glitter paste is a bit bigger than other glitters. So you might have a bit of trouble getting it in there, but it's not a big deal. I mean, you can get it in there pretty easily. It's just not as easy as some pastes. So all I basically do is put it all over my stencil there, and then I'll scrape up all the excess and put it back into that little tub because I don't want to waste any. And you'll find that these pastes, especially this one, are very sticky. So I just keep some water on hand with a paper towel and rub off my spatula right after. Now I'll take off that stencil and voila, here's the final product. That red is very striking on the white. It looks really nice, and I think it'd be perfect for like a Christmas card. So I'll put that aside to dry. This one, the Bo Bunny, dries pretty quickly, I'd say, depending on how thick you put it on. The next stencil here I'm using is by Simon Says Stamp. It's the Heart Mandala stencil, and I'm going to be using some foil cardstock for this one, metallic cardstock. This is just it's something I picked up from Michael's. I think it's Recollections cardstock. And here I'm going to use the Tanzanite Glimmer Paste by Nuvo. Now, one of the main things I noticed with this paste is it goes on very smoothly. So you can see that this stencil is probably more intricate than the last. However, because the glitter particles in this paste are very fine, it's spreading on so nicely, and I don't have to worry too much about trying to get it into all the little nooks and crannies to make sure it's covering my entire stencil. Now this stencil is a little different than the other one. It's not as easy to sort of prevent rough edges here. You could take the artistic route and go for those rough edges, but I was trying my best to get that glitter in the stencil and not have too many rough edges there. So that's what I did here, and I'll put on as much as I need and scrape off the excess in the end and put it back in that tub, especially for this Nuvo paste because it's pretty expensive, I'd say, but it is worth it, especially this color. And so there's your final product. And it looks really nice on that shiny metallic cardstock there. So I'll put that one aside to dry. And we'll move on to the DIY glitter paste. So I'm using another Simon Says stamp stencil here. This one's the Maryland stencil. And I'll put it onto this gray cardstock I have. It's kind of like a slate colored cardstock. It's from Recollections. Again, it's something I picked up from Walmart. Sorry, not Walmart, from Michael's. And I'm going to now add the glitter. So I'm not even going to use that little sprinkle section it gives you. I'm just opening it and dumping a whole bunch on the paste. Now, an important point to note here is that you want a lot of glitter. If you skimp on the amount of glitter that you're going to be mixing with your paste, then when you put the paste on your stencil, there's going to be a sparse effect with the glitter. So you'll get some spaces where you won't really see much glitter, and it won't look too much like glitter paste. It'll look a little weird, but I mean, it gives you a different effect. So you could try it and see what that looks like. But for me, I want to be overpowering my paste with glitter so that the glitter is in every part of that paste. Like, I'm not going to have any pearlescent paste shining through. It's just all glitter. So I have a lot here. So I'm spreading it on all over. And then once again, the technique is to scrape up anything that's extra. And in this case, I ended up getting rid of the excess amount, but you could probably get a jar and put it in there and save it for use for another project. So here I'm trying to clean up my edges, and there's your final product. With this stencil, I found it turned out very nice. And right here, it has sort of an opaque look because of the pearlescent embossing paste, but once it fully dries, all you can see is that glitter. So now I'm gonna move on. This here is the Build-A-Flower Peony Blossom set from Altenew. I figured I'd stamp out some little images to put on top of my backgrounds. And I'm doing all of this while those glitter paste is drying on my cardstock. So here I'm using some Rouge Altenew crisp dye ink to do the background of this flower, and I'm going to set up the next layer. This one only has 2 layers, so it's pretty simple to do. And the next color I'm going to be using on this flower is Coral Bliss. Once again, Altenew crisp dye ink. So I'll stamp that a couple times so I get a nice dark image. And as you can see, I've done 3 flowers here. I don't think I end up using all 3, but it's a good idea to do extra rather than less. Now here I'm using my anti-static tool because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing with some embossing powders. Now I didn't show you here, but I actually dried that ink with my heat gun in between. I heat set it because I really don't want my embossing powder going all over that flower. So I'll add this rose gold embossing powder by Altenew. I have noticed that it is rose gold, but I find that there's not much rose tinge to it. It's very gold. So I use it a lot for gold accents. It's kind of my go-to embossing powder because it's a nice gold. It's not too in your face or too extravagant. And the last thing for this set of flowers I'm going to do is stamp out the leaves. I need a few leaves to go in there. So once again, I'm using Shadow Creek for the first layer of these leaves. And then I'm going to be using Mountain Pine. These are both Altenew crisp dye inks. And I think I chose these colors because I have the bigger pads, the bigger ink pads for these, which I find much easier to work with. So here I'll stamp the second layer. And it's easier to do these leaves just by eyeing it and doing it with the acrylic blocks rather than using the stamp positioner. Now here I'm not showing you. Once again, I dried those leaves with my heat gun in between so that my embossing powder doesn't go all over the place. I use my anti-static tool to make sure the embossing powder doesn't go all over the place. And I'm using that rose gold embossing powder by Altenew again. Now, this is the Build-A-Flower set. So they all the Build-A-Flower sets come with the dies. And these dies are unique in that they don't leave a white border around your flowers. They cut right up to the edge. So you can see here, now that I've die cut them out, there's a little bit of an edge there showing, but I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. Here are some centers that I've cut out of some black Darice Coordinations glitter cardstock. And now here I'm going to show you how I get rid of that white border that you might get by accident. So I'm going to use the Rouge ink that I did the bottom layer of that flower with, and just use my blending sponge to go over those white areas. So then once you've colored all that in there with your sponge, it looks like you don't have any errors there on the way that you die cut them. So I mean, I choose to do my flowers and then die cut them, but some people may die cut and then stamp. It's totally up to you, whatever works best. But if you do it the way that I did, this is the best way to sort of cover up any mistakes you may have in positioning your dies. So now I'm going to put these these cuts together, adding the centers with some Tombow Mono Liquid Adhesive. Now these are cool because you can actually sort of pull up the centers of that middle piece so that it has a bit more of a 3D effect, which I'm actually trying to do here. Now this probably wasn't the best idea to do while it was drying. I probably should have done this after it had dried. But those are my little elements that I'm going to use for one card. And I'm going to be using it for this one here. There's your final result with the Tanzanite Lavender Nouveau Glimmer Paste. And I will say, even though it was kind of warped at first, it flattened out pretty well once it was completely dry. So I have cut out a 5.5 by 4.25 background here, card base in black. And I'll be adhering this card front to it. I'm using lots of glue here to make sure that stays put. Especially so because you do have that paste on there, which can kind of warp the paper. This one wasn't too bad at warping, but I still wanted to make sure it stayed flat on my card. So here I'm using the My Favorite Things Many Thanks dies from the Stamp and Die set. And I've cut out 3 thanks die cuts that I'll be gluing together here in order to create like a nice thick die cut. And as you see most people doing, that acrylic block works wonders for setting that glue and making sure that it dries flat. And now we have the Altenew Peonies, Sweet Pea stamp set. And I'm going to do some heat embossing to add to the sentiment here. So once again, I'm doing this and I'm going to be using the Rose Gold Altenew embossing powder. And I'm stamping on the black cardstock just so that it ties in the black card base that I have there. I find that when you're using metallic or shiny type card fronts, it stands out much more when you use it on black cardstock. So here I'll just dry that with my heat tool. And it says, "You are the sweetest." And I use that Swiffer cloth a lot, which is a handy little trick I learned from Jennifer Maguire and watching her videos. And now I'll take my my Tonic guillotine cutter here by Tim Holtz and cut that strip. Now I'll assemble all those little pieces on my card. Once again, I'm using the Tombow Mono liquid adhesive. It gives you time to sort of move your image around so that it's not set completely in one go, just in case you want to manipulate your image before completely giving your card the final, go saying it's done, Now, another good thing with this set is that you can use these adhesive squares to sort of prop up the petals. So it gives it a bit more dimension. I mean, it's got a lot of dimension with the layers and with the glimmer paste, but this just adds a little bit more. Plus, it's handy to use these foam pieces, especially if you're sending this through the mail. So I'll keep that dimension. So here's my my sentiment, the thanks, and I'll just glue that on there. And I think for my sentiment strip, I'm going to be using foam tape. So there I was just showing you that if I have any extra foam tape that I don't use, I just stick it to the side of my roll so that I can use it next time. Handy little tip, just so that you don't waste your foam. And there we go. There's that final touch. Now I did add some glossy accents to the thanks and a few little dots around the card. So we'll move on to the second card here. I'm going to be using the Build-A-Flower Snapdragon from Altenew. And because these are such long pieces and they have tons of little layers to stamp on, what I did was I die cut the image first. And this is a little neat trick you can use, because it helps you line everything up and make sure that it's in the right place so that when you go to die cut it, it's not sort of like missing a leaf here or there. So I'm just adding some low tack tape, or washi tape in this case, to the back, and I'll put those die cuts right back in the negative piece there. So there it's stuck in place, and it makes it easier to stamp on all the other layers. So I'll line up my first layer here. Just so. And the first ink that I'm going to be using is the Mango Smoothie Crisp Dye Ink from Altenew. This is a nice bright yellow. And I'll usually double stamp these. And the next color is Peach Perfect, so that's the second layer. These ones tend to have 3 layers for the flowers and 2 layers for the stems. And then I'll stamp the third layer with Cotton Candy. So these are sort of like unconventional colors, but they layer very well to create a nice like yellow-orange flower. So next, what I'm going to be doing is lining up my my stems, and I'll be doing those in brown. So I use paper bag here for the first layer. And then for the second layer, I'll be using dark chocolate. All right, there. So it gives it somewhat of a different look, not too real, a little more modern. So once I'm done all my stamping, you see everything lines up. I have my nice white border around it, and I didn't have to mess around with positioning my die because I die cut it first. So I'm going to use those two pieces on the second example here. So this is the one where we used the pearlescent embossing paste to create our own glitter paste. And I use this die to sort of cut out a little section to put on the bottom there, because this card is a little bigger. It's a 5x7. So for my sentiment, I'm using the Altenew Hope stamp set. And I'm just positioning how I'm going to be putting my flowers here so I can figure out how I'm going to put my sentiment on that white strip. This helps a lot, rather than sort of eyeballing it and then realizing your flowers don't fit or they're covering your sentiment. So these are small little sentiments, so I'm figuring out where to put it here. And then after I've positioned it exactly where I want it, I'll pick it up with my with an acrylic block. Another way to go about this is to use your stamp positioner, but I find you don't really need it that perfect, so I just use my acrylic block. So once again, I'm in with the Swiffer, because that anti-static powder tool creates a lot of mess, I find, especially on this Tim Holtz tonic glass mat. So I'll stamp in Versamark, and once again I'm going to use the Altenew Rose Gold embossing powder, and I'll heat set that there. So the sentiment, as you can see, says, "Hope your day is amazing." So I'm intending this to be for a birthday card or something like that. Now I'm showing you here, this is how I keep my Distress mini inks. I know that there's those tins that I just showed you there, but ironically I use them for Altenew rather than the Tim Holtz Distress inks. And I think that's mainly because I find that the Altenew mini inks, sometimes the lids aren't on that that hard, like they don't stay on as well as I think they should. So I'd rather keep them in the tins so that they don't dry out. And I think it's also because I use the Altenew mini inks much more than I use the Distress inks. I think I use the oxides more than the Distress inks. So anyhow, I'll start assembling this card and putting this gray glitter paste DIY piece on top of this 5x7 card base. Now this white card base is a much thicker, it's a much thicker cardstock than the rest of the cardstock I'm using. And actually that I didn't actually tell you, the color that I used there for the Distress ink on that little panel was tea dye. So I just wanted to do that so it ties in a little more with the glitter rather than standing out so much. So here I'm going to use foam tape to actually adhere those little snapdragons. And I'll just position them here, trying to remember how I did it before. So there we go. Now there's the final product. However, that's not enough for me. I need to be putting some bling on it. So these are some jewels that I got from Michaels. I don't know what brand they are, but it's a nice little pack. It's got like 8 different colors, some metallic, some gems, and they work very nicely with this card. So that's the final card here for that second DIY glimmer paste. It looks just like any other normal glitter paste. And here I'm using Sunny Studios Christmas Trimmings, this stamp set and the dies here. I'm going to be stamping out some hollies to use with that red glitter paste from the first example. Using some Just Green and Hunter Green from the Altenew Crisp Die inks. And there's 3 layers for these hollies. So I'll do the first 2 layers in green ink, and then the last layer I'm going to do some heat embossing again. So there's a second layer. And once again, I'm not showing you here, but I heated up those images to make sure that the ink was completely dry before moving on to heat embossing. It's important to do that and to use the anti-static tool to prevent a complete mess with your embossing powder. So I'll stamp all 6 of those. And I think I used, let's see, I used some Zing glitter embossing powder this time rather than using the Altenew, just because I figured it'd add a bit of bling. So here's that card base that I used with the Bo Bunny Ruby Red. As you can see, it looks very nice. Now, for the sentiment for this card, I'm going to be using the Mary Sugar Script by Birch Press. I cut out 2 in like a craft cardstock and 1 in metallic gold. Now, I'm showing you this card here. And if you buy from Simon Says Stamp, you know what that is. Every time you get an order, they send you that card that has like a discount code or a thank you message. And it's actually a nice glossy, like thick cardstock. So I actually use it to print, to die cut all my layers for my my sentiments. So I just figured I'd show you that and show you how I make use of everything I get from Simon Says Stamp. So anyways, I put together those 3 layers for the Mary die cut, and I cut down my card front to size. This is, actually, I don't know. I honestly don't even know what size this is. But it's one of the smaller sizes. And what I'm going to do here is attach this piece of glitter cardstock. This is Recollections glitter cardstock. It comes in a 12 by 12 inch pad that I got from Michaels. So the next thing I'm going to do is use this W+9 festive greeting stamp set, and I'm going to use that small Christmas sentiment to complete my Merry Christmas for my card. So once again, I'm going to heat emboss, and I'll start putting that together. So here are my hollies, my leaves. I'm going to attach them to the edges there to give it sort of just a random look, and then a complete holly at the bottom. I really like the liquid glue for this. I mentioned this so many times before. It just makes it easier to move these things around. Like even now, I could probably pick up one of those and reposition it, especially because this glue, it dries clear, so you wouldn't see a thing. So I'll put those on there and create my holly. And the next thing I want to do is attach my sentiment. So I'll position it a little bit above that complete holly so that I can put that small sentiment on the bottom with some foam adhesive. And there's a little bit of excess hanging off the ends there. I'll just cut that off. So there you go. Now I just got to add some embellishments as usual. Here's some Christmas red stickles. Now I don't normally use stickles, but lately I've been buying a whole bunch of them. I figure I've done the whole Nuvo glossy accents, all that sort of stuff. So let's try the stickles out. So this was a Christmas red I used for the little berries on the holly. And once again, I'm using, these are more like a pearl type gold. So they're round rather than gem looking. And they're from that same set that I got from Michaels that I used before on the other card. So there's the last card there. A nice Christmas card made from Ruby Red Bow Bunny glitter paste. So there's my comparison today and the 3 cards that I made. You can see here I got a Christmas card, a birthday card, and a thank you card. If you liked my video, please click the like button there. And if you really like it, please click subscribe. And anytime I post a new video, you'll get a notification if you press the bell. Here I'm going to be posting a couple other videos. You can take a look at them. And please do check out my blog. I have a link in the description down below. So there's a bunch of other projects there that you can look at and some more videos. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you again.